We're now on Daf Nun Ches Amud Beis. El Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda, who says that the reason why the Rabbanan suspended the Achilas Truma of an Arusa, even though she's Kinyan Kaspa with the rice she eats, is because of Simbon. So we could say Kamaisa Mishum Simbon, Ubasraisa Mishum Simbon. Well, what's the difference between the Mishnah Rishon and the Mishnah Achrona? I mean, you have to assume that we're operating the din Simbon. And that's why the Arusa does not eat Truma, because maybe there'll be a mum, and it'll be okay to Kedusha Mafreya through toes. And if that be the case, then how do we justify the Mishnah Rishona? Because even though it's Higiyas Man V'lo Nisu, he has no way of knowing whether she's a Balas Mum or not. So that Chash that he might discover that she has a concealed mum in one of the parts of her body that are concealed, that Chashash is still outstanding. How can the Mishnah Rishona possibly allow her to eat Truma? And the answer is, he can be Nayu, V'dikas Chutz, Marsa, V'dikas Chutz, Shma V'dika, V'dikas Chutz, Umarsa, V'dikas Chutz, Lo Shma V'dika. The nafkamina, the machlokas, the controversy between the Mishnah Rishona and the Mishnah Achrona is V'dikas Chutz, which means that when it's Higiyas Man V'lo Nisu at the end of the 12-month period, it's time for Nisuin, then the Krovim of the Baal, I should say the Krovos of the Baal, will do a Bedika, and that Bedika is before the actual Nisuin, and she hasn't entered into to her husband's Rishus yet, because they postponed the Nisuin, they postponed the Chuppah. So is it enough that they did a Bedika at the end of the 12-month period, even before the Chuppah? And the Mishnah Rishona says, B'dikas Chutz Shma B'dika, that before he pays Hamizonos at the end of the 12 months, he's going to have one of his Krovos check her out and make sure, guarantee that there's no mum. And based on that B'dika, she can eat Truma, because we're not going to be Choshesh that maybe when he marries her, he takes her to the Chuppah, he'll discover to his dismay Simbon. But the Mishnah Achrona will still prohibit it, because we're not going to rely on B'dikas Chutz. Even after the Baal designates amongst his Krovos those who will supervise the B'dika, but it's B'dikas Chutz. And we're not going to rely on a B'dikas Chutz. And therefore we still have the Chash of Simbon. That leads us to the Mishnah here on the top of Daf Nun Ches Amud Beis. Hamagdish Maisi Yedei Ishto Harezo Osa Ve'ocheles. The husband has rights to the Maisi Yadayim of his wife, and he went ahead, he was Magdish the Maisi Yadayim. So he's basically declaring that whatever wages, whatever produce his wife will earn, they're all hegdish. But the law is, it's not hegdish. He does not have the legal authority to create hegdish from Maisi Yadayim. And therefore she can continue with her Maisi Yadayim, doing the malachas, and she can eat the product of her Maisi Yadayim. And about this point, we find no machlokas. Where is their contention? That's with regard to Mosa. In Mosa, there's a Havamina, we'll soon see Rabbi Meir, that you could be Magdish, the Baal could be Magdish Mosa. What's Mosa? The average girl on a 9 to 5 job will earn 20, and this girl worked overtime, an extra hour, an extra 2 hours she worked, so now she earns 22. That's called Mosar. And Mosar Maisi Yadayim is a schus ha'isha unless he pays her an allowance, right? In addition to mazonos, on top to boot, he has to give her a weekly allowance. We'll see how much money he has to give her. And that weekly allowance is Keneged Mosar Ksuba. Mosar Hamaisi Adayim. Rabbi Meir Omer Hekesh. Rabbi Meir says that he's the balabas over Mosar because he picks up the Mosar. And therefore he can be Magdish. Rabbi Yochanan Sandlo Omer Chulin. He's not the balabas over Mosar. He gets to enjoy the benefit of Mosar if he pays her the additional sum. But essentially, he has no right to the Mosar. He's not the Bailam over the Mosar, and therefore he cannot be Magdish the Mosar. Omar Avuna Marav, it's a question whether it's Omar Rav or not, but Omar Avuna, Yechola Isha Loma Labaila Eini Nizonis Veinois. A woman's rights to mizonos are a gift awarded to her by the Rabbanan. His rights to Maisi Yadayim are in lieu of that mizonos. So the mizonos is the ikar, and the Maisi Yadayim is the tofer. And therefore, she has a right to say, oh, you made a takon on my behalf and my benefit to eat mizonos. Efshi b'takonas chachamim, thanks but no thanks. Kasavar, what's the underlying fundamental principle of Rav Huna? Ki tkidu rabbanan mizone ikar u'maisi yadeh mishum eva. The real original takana was for her benefit that he should support her. And that means that even though she's earning, let's say 20, but support is 30, she doesn't have enough money to support herself. And therefore, we made a takana to Baal has to support her. Even though Amaisi Yadayim are not enough to bring in mizonos for her. The Baal has to pay for the mizonos. Now, once the Baal was granted that obligation, he starts resenting her because she's making wages. She could use those wages towards the mizonos. And the Rabbanan made a takana, no, he has the chiyuv mizonos. So he harbors a certain element, we call it a resentment, that he got the raw end of the stick here, the deal, because he has to shell out for mizonos. So we have to give him something to appease him. And that's going to be Maisi Yadeh. So the Ikar Takana was a Takanas mizonos on behalf of the Isha. Litovasa. That's the nature of takana and the motivation for takana. If she comes along and she says she doesn't want it, I don't need these mizonos. I'm making a bomb of money as a psychiatrist, so I don't need you. Is or shus biyado. I don't want to do and give you my Maisi Yadayim. Maybe I don't even want to go to work at all. Early retirement. I'll work on Zoom on my house computer. So she would rather pocket her Maisi Yadayim and forego mizonos. And since the takana mizonos was on her behalf and her benefit, then she says, and it's valid, and then she can pocket all her Maisi Yadayim. And our Mishnah would seem to support Rav Huna, because our Mishnah says, at least according to the Chachamim, Rabbi Yochanan Sandler, that he cannot be magdish her maisi yadayim. They belong to her. And the proof is that she could say, Eini Nizonos, Eini Yosef. In fact, the Gemara Meisvei, we have a brisa that says, Tiknu Nizonos Tachas Maisi Yadayim. It seems like the Ikar Takana was Maisi Yadayim, and because she is giving him her produce, therefore the Rabbanon, as a tafel of Zeh Keneged Zeh, they were machayev him to pay her the Mizonos check. And therefore it's the exact opposite of Rav Huna, because this brisa indicates that the takana was not on behalf of the Isha, but rather the main takana was on behalf of the Isha, of the Baal, that she should have to fork over her Maisi Yadayim, a salary check to him. So the Gemara now rewrites the brisa a little bit. Ooh. Right, Le Misayel. I'm sorry, I skipped. Ema tiknu Maisi Yadayim tachas mizonos. We should read the brisa thusly. Not tiknu mizonos tachas Maisi Yadayim, but pumfaker. Tiknu Maisi Yadayim tachas mizonos. And the Ikar Takana is therefore the Takana mizonos, which is Litovasa. Lema V'Sayele, does the Mishnah support Rav Huna Hamadish Maisi Yadei Ishta? We said that according to Rabbi Yochanan Sandler, is Lo Chala Hegdesh, the Hegdesh will not be Chal. And therefore, Hari Osa Vocheles. Even though he was Magdish Hamaisi Yadayim, she could take the Maisi Yadayim and eat it. There's no Hegdesh here. My love, B'Nizonos. We should assume it's a case where the Baal is living up to his responsibility to give up Mizonos. There's no reason not to assume so. She refuses the Mizonos, and she insists she's going to go out and get a job, bring home Hamaisi Yadayim, and that's worth more than all the Mizonos in the world. So the Gemara says, "Lo." The case is not my lab B'Nizonos, where he is supplying Mizonos for her, and she's refusing because she wants to get her Maisi Yadayim, and therefore the Chegdesh is not Chal because she can refuse Mizonos, and therefore the Maisi Yadayim is hers. He has no right to be Magdish or Maisi Yadayim. Lo, the Gemara says no. We're not talking about a case where he, the Baal, is supporting his wife, but he's not supporting his wife. Let's say he's a very poor person, he doesn't have enough money in his account to pay for his own. But if he does pay for Mizonos and he does give Mizonos, then he can be Magdish or Maisi Yadayim because the Maisi Yadayim belong to him. He's the Bailim over our Maisi Yadayim because he's providing Mizonos for her. And she has no right to say and declare, I don't want to get this parnasa from you. In fact, the Gemara B'Shein and Izones, if it's a case where he's not providing Mizonos, maybe he's too poor, if that be the case, remember the Bryce is not telling me anything. I mean, the Mishnah is not telling me anything I wouldn't know on my own. Well, why does the town have to tell me that he cannot be Magdish Maisi Yadayim? Of course he cannot be Magdish Maisi Yadayim because Maisi Yadayim belong to her. He's not paying for Mizonos. So what's the chiddush here of this Mishnah? And now the Gemara wants to demonstrate that she has rights to her own Maisi Yadayim if he's not supporting her. Okay, so let's give a little introduction. Here we have a machlokes regarding the following question: Is the Adon who owns an Eved Knan, is he obligated to support the Eved Knan? And afilu l'madim according to Rabbi Yochanan who holds, yet yochel harav. Rav means the adon, the master. Loma le'eved, he can say and declare to his eved. We're talking about a non-Jewish eved, an eved Knan. Asei imi v'yeni zoncha. Do the malacha that you're obligated to do in the framework in the course of Avdus, but you have no rights to mizonos. I'm not going to give you mizonos. Go and knock on doors and collect enough money for mizonos if you don't have that money. But Hani b'li David Knani. Why the Loksibe? We're looking at a pasuk in Dvarim. And with regard to an Eved Ivri, it says, Ki tov lo imach. But with regard to the Eved Knani, lo ksive, there's no pasuk that says, as it does in Eved Ivri, Ki tov lo imach. But in the case of an Eved Ivri, then ksive tov lo imach. Lo. The other has no right to say to the Eved Ivri, I'm not going to support you. I just want to get the money from your wages. Because Shenishto, and how much more so if he's not supporting his wife, then hum I see them are certainly hers. So I don't need a chiddush in that Mishnah that he cannot be magdish hum I see them. And where it's a sefer itzrichle. Another one of those literary principles in Shas that if you learn a Bryce and it seems to say things that are obvious and Pshita, Maika Mashval, and then we employ the principle of Mishum Seifa Itzrichle, that if we don't need the ratio, we need the Seifa. So the ratio becomes like an introduction, a segue into the Sefer. So what's the chiddush of the Sefer? Mosa. As we said earlier, she works overtime. And her wages reflect the fact that some percentage of her wages are really Mosa. It's Rabbi Meir Omer, Chal Hegdesh, Li'achar Misa, so is this Hegdesh of Mosar valid? Rabbi Meir validates the Hegdesh, whereas Rabbi Yochanan Sanla rejects it. So that's the chiddush here in the Sefer. The Sefer is coming to present a contention, a machlokas between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yochanan Sandler about a person who is magdish mosar ma'aseh yodeh. So again, everything that we've learned now in this sugya, reflecting the shita of Rav Huna, is predicated on the principle that originally Chazal made a takana mizonos, and mizonos ikar. And her ma'aseh yadayim is mishum eva because she got the schus of mizonos. And therefore, if he's not supporting her, then clearly she owns her ma'aseh yadayim, and he cannot be magdish her ma'aseh yadayim. So the Gemara pliga, the Reish Lakish. Rav Huna's principle that the Iker Takana was the Tovasa, namely Mizonos, and Ma'aseh Yodeh was Tafel Mishum Eva, that is the unique opinion of Rav Huna, but Reish Lakish rejects that opinion. The Omer Reish Lakish, Lo Tema Time the Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir, who says that a man could be Magdish Mosar Ma'aseh Yodeh of his wife. Mishum de Kasavar Adam Magdish Davar Shalom Oliolam, even though at this point the Mossad doesn't exist. And he was Magdish Mossad that will come into existence down the line in the future. And Adam Magdish Davar Shalom Oliolam. No. That's not the underlying reason of Rabbi Meir, who says that the Baal could be Magdish most of Maisi Yadayim. El time of the Rabbi Meir, mitoch sheyachol lechofa lemaisi Yadayim, nasek ha'omer yikadshu yadai lo sehen. In other words, according to Reish Lakish's twist, his understanding of Rabbi Meir, the Iker Takana was Maisi Yadayim. And the husband always has rights to lachufa, meaning to force her to produce Maisi Yadayim, and therefore he cannot tolerate when she says, "Oh, Eini nizonos v'eini osa." No. The takana was l'tova so. She can't waive the takana and he'll end up without Maisi Yadayim. So he's the bailam of Maisi Yadayim. And therefore he could be magdish them. So the Gemara raises the obvious objection. For holo omar lahachi. He didn't say that he was being magdish or yadayim. It says he was magdish or maisi yadayim. And that's a davar shelo b'olam. How can Reish Lakish say that Rabbi Meir has nothing to do with the other magdish davar shelo b'olam? Rabbi Meir is not committed to hold that position of ein adam magdish davar shelo b'olam. We're not talking about a davar shelo b'olam, because according to Reish Lakish, we're talking about yikadshu yadayich lo seiner. That's not a davar shelo b'olam. So that was Reish Lakish's argument, but the problem is, what it says is Maisa Yodayach. He was Magdish Maisa Yodayach. He wasn't Magdish the Yodayim, which is the Davar Shabbat. He was Magdish the Maisa Yodayim, the future produce. That's a Davar Shabbat. So the Gemara answers, we're going to now invoke a sugya in Erevin. A man says regarding a tinok, the tinok is less than 1 month old. And in the Torah, that tinok has no erech. And the man says, erech alai, erech shalosu tinok, this two-week-old baby alive. And he probably did that in honor of the great miracle of God that he has now a young child. His wife gave birth to 2 weeks ago to a baby. And he promises the erech of this newborn baby. Erech alive. Says Rabbi Meir, he's chayav. Egdesh is chal, and he has to pay up the erech. Why? Because Rabbi Meir operates with the principle of ein adam motzi dvarav levatol. A man knows, he's aware of the fact that there's no erech to a baby who's less than 1 month old. So what was his kavanah when he said erech alive? We have no choice, but we have to say damav alive, which means not erech alai as designated by the Torah, but rather damav alai. Damav is something else entirely. Damav means ke'eved hanimkar b'shuk. And here also, we're going to apply the principle when a man says, Maiseh yodeh lehegdesh, ein adam motzi dvar levatol. So even though he said he was Magdish Maisi Yedei Ishto, which is a Davar Shelo B'Olam, but rather what he really meant to say was Nasik Hamallah Yikachi Yadayich Lo Sam. The Yadayim is a Davar Shelo B'Olam. And this is a case in point in which we activate Rabbi Meir's principle that if we can't take him literally because it's impossible what he's doing if he's Magdish the erech of a baby that's less than 1 month old, it's impossible. then we reinterpret his words, or sometimes even reformulate his words, to guarantee that he took upon himself that is chayvus. And therefore, even though he said, Maisi Yadei Ishti, he wants to be Magdish, but what he really means is to be Magdish Yadayach Losei. Frek the Gemara v'Savar Rabbi Meir Eno the Magdish Dover Shalom V'Olam. What Reish Lakish said, that Rabbi Meir holds Eno the Magdish Dover Shalom V'Olam, but we reinterpret his words to say that he was Magdish the Yadayim. But Tanya, we have a brisa with regard to a guy. Ha'omer le'isha, he says to a Jewish woman, Harei mukudeshesli li'achar shes gayer, or li'achar shetis gayri, or li'achar shesh tachrer, or li'achar shetish tachari, li'achar shiyamus bailech, or it is already kiddushin, or shetomus achosich, he's married to a sister, or li'achar sheyachlo tzlich Yivamich, after Yavam will give you chalitza. Rabbi Meir Omer Kudeshes. Rabbi Meir holds Adam Magdish Dover Shalom Holiolam. And actually, Rabbi Meir is referring to Kiddushin. There's been Makadish Dover Shalom Holiolam. With all these cases, but we're going to make an analogy and equate Kiddushin with Hegdesh. Just like in Kiddushin, Rabbi Meir recognizes futures, so too he recognizes in Hegdesh, Davar Shalom Oliolam. So why does Reish Lakish say that according to Rabbi Meir, ain't on the Magdish Davar Shalom Oliolam? Any more answers? May I he in? May ha lekal mishman. You're right. You quoted a brisa about Kiddushin, and you've proven to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that Rabbi Meir holds the position that Adam Magdish Davar Shalom Oliolam. But from the din of our Mishnah, that a man could be Magdish his wife's Maisi Yadayim lekal mishman. You have no proof and no justification to derive the conclusion that Adam Magdish Davar Shalom Oliolam. Again, Rabbi Meir actually holds Adam Magdish Davar Shalom Oliolam, but don't prove it from our Mishnah of Maisi Yadayim because he wasn't Magdish HaMaisi Yadayim, he's Magdish HaYadayim, which is the Davar Shalom Oliolam. We learned in our Mishnah HaMosar. If she works overtime, most of my Ishto, Rabbi Meir Omer Hegdesh, he could be Magdishit. Frek the Gemara Amos. When is he able to effectuate Kiddusha and Hegdesh to a Maisi Yadayim? Rav Shmuel Damichav Vayu, Mosar Liachamisa Kadosh. And Rav Hada bar Abba are Mosar Mechayim Kodesh. So let's go through the two shittas. First, we have Rav and Shmuel. We have to wait until the wife dies and the Baal inherits his wife. That's Baal Yorish's Ishto. For that Hegdish to be Chal. Whereas Rav Ada bar Abba says no. That even if she's still alive, she hasn't perished, he can still be Magdish, the husband can still be Magdish Mosar Maisi Yadayim. And it becomes Kadosh. So again, according to the first opinion of Rav and Shmuel, he has to be the Bailim over the Mosar. when, at what point does it become Bailam over the Mosa such that now he could be Magdashit? That's only after she dies, because he inherits his wife. Once he inherits his wife, he takes possession over Hamaisi Adayim, in this case Mosar, and now that it's his, he can be Magdashit. And again, this is all based on the sheet of Rabbi Meir that other Magdish Dover Shalom Aliola. And Rav Ada bar Abba disagrees. He goes as far as to say that even during her lifetime, the Baal is the owner of her Mosa. And the Hegdesh will be Cham. Havi bar Rav Papa. Rav Papa got, was very upset, very perturbed. B'mai. Well, what's the case in the Mishnah? Ilema b'malala mizonos. If the Baal is actually, befall, as we say, supporting her, umayla, and he gives her also an extra allowance, which is called a ma kesef. The Rabban made a takana that on a weekly basis, a Baal should supply his wife with ma kesef. So a Papa doesn't understand what's going on. If he's giving her both mizonos and ma kesef, then why can't he be magdish the maisi yadayim already b'chayel? And again, we're trying to support the view of Rav Huna. The Ella, he's too poor to support her. And certainly, is now we're going to ask the opposite question. My time of demand the Omer, what's the reason, according to Rav Ada bar Abba, that Michayim Kadosh? He has no bailus over her Mosa because he's not giving her more kesef. So how could Rav Ada bar Abba say that it's kadosh? The answer is Liolam Malalom Mizonos. However, Eino Malalom more kesef l'tzorchel. He doesn't add that extra allowance which allows him to get Mosa. Rav Ushmul Sabri, here we turn to Nintes. Tiknu Mizonos Tachas Maisi Adel, Umar Kesef Tachas Mosa. They came to Loka Yoiv, Mar Kesef, Mosa. Vidahavi. It doesn't belong to him. And therefore he can't be Magdashit during his lifetime, during her lifetime. So it's only after she dies and he inherits her, then his Hegdesh is Chal. But Rav Ada bar Abba Sovar, Tiknu Mizonos Tachas Mosar, Umar Kesef Tachas Maisi Adel. Everything is just the opposite according to Rav Ada bar Abba. The takana that she should be supplied by support, that is quid pro quo for Mosar of Hamaisi Yadayim, and the Ma Kesef is for Hamaisi Yadayim. Now the Baal wants to give a Mizonos. Keva the Kayoiv La Mizoni, Mutter. I'm sorry, Mosar the Day Havi. And why? Because the takana was that mizonos is tachas mosa. and he's supporting her, and therefore he gets Mosar. Well, I don't understand something here. It says here that Mazonos is Tachas, I'm sorry, that Moa Kesef is Tachas Maisi Adel. So again, once again, he can be Magdish her Maisi Adel Michayim. That's called the Dehavi. And why? Because he's supplying her with Mizonos. But I don't understand. Could he be Magdish or Maisi Adayin? It seems like he's not giving her more kesef. If he's not giving her more kesef, then he's not the Bailim on the Maisi Adayin. This is very paradoxical. He's giving her Mizonos, so therefore he could be Magdish her Maisi, her Mosar, but he cannot be Magdish her Maisi Adayin. So the Gemara asks, "B'may kod miflagi?" And with this, we'll conclude. Mar Savar, Midi the Shchiach, Midi the Shchiach. We said of Bizonos, that is a daily need, and a Shchiach, and that corresponds to that which she's giving him, which is Shchiach, and that is Maisi Adel. She knows exactly up front what her salary is. Mar Savar, but according to Rabbi Barava, Midi the Kayetz, Midi the Kayetz. That they were misaking more kesef because that's called Kayetz. Right? It's a set amount, more kesef on a weekly basis. And Maisi Adel means that she has a salary, a guaranteed salary. That's also kotsu. But Mosar is Eino Kotsu. We can't anticipate exactly what her Mosar is, how much overtime is she going to put on. And therefore, they're Masake and Kenegdo Mizonos, which is Eino Kotsu. Okay, then. So this is where we'll end. For today. So let me take this opportunity to wish you a good Shabbos. And Mitzvah Hashem, I hope on Sunday we'll get together. It might be a little earlier on Sunday. I'll try to notify you as soon as I see how the winds are blowing.